Good morning. This is Miss Ani, and I'm at the Kodiak Public Library outside today because it is absolutely gorgeous. And I wanted to show you, in case you didn't know, that there's lots of different things to do outside the library this summer. So just outside the front door, I'm going to see if I can get this. There is a chalk walk that starts all the way down at the street, and it comes all the way up. And it's something you can do just on a sunny day or even a sunny evening. And the sidewalk will tell you exactly what to do, whether it's buzz like a bee or leap like a frog. And it will lead you straight to our story walk. So the story walk goes around the building and you read a story as you go. You can also do our scavenger hunt. So the bee scavenger hunt is looking for specially colored rocks, and they all have bees on them and special bee facts. I'm going to show you one of the rocks right here. But look at all this great space around the library that we can have fun outdoors this summer. This is one of our bee rocks that one of our volunteers painted, and you're going to look for other rocks like this on the lawn behind me. There's 7 different kinds of rocks, and they all have special little signs that tell you something about the honeybees. So if you haven't had a chance to do that, please come down to the library and you can check it out. But in the meantime, I am going to read a story outside, and this is called Library Lion. Now, you might know we have library bees, but we don't have a library lion yet this summer. One day, a lion came to the library. He walked right past the circulation desk and up into the stacks of books. What would you do if you saw a lion at the library? I might get a little nervous at first. Mr. McBee, he ran down the hall to the head librarian's office. Miss Merriweather? He called. No running, said Miss Merriweather without looking up. But there's a lion, said Mr. McBee. He's in the library. Is he breaking any rules? Asked Mrs. Merriweather. She was very particular about rule breaking. Well, no, not really. Then leave him be. The lion wandered all around the library. He sniffed the card catalog. He rubbed his head against the new book collection. Then he padded over to the story corner and went to sleep. No one was sure what to do. There weren't any rules about lions at the library. Soon it was time for story hour. There weren't any rules about lions at story hour either. The story lady seemed a little nervous. That would be me. But she read out the first book's title in a good, clear voice, and the lion looked up. The story lady kept reading. The lion stayed for the next story, and the story after that. And he waited for another story, but the children began to walk away. Story hour is over, a little girl said to him. It's time to go. The lion looked at the children, he looked at the story lady, and he looked at the closed books. And then he roared very loudly. Roar! Do you think he's happy? Miss Merriweather came striding out of her office. Who is making that noise? She demanded. It's the lion, said Mr. McBee. Miss Merriweather marched over to that lion. If you cannot be quiet, you will have to leave, she said in a very stern voice. Those are the rules." The lion kept roaring. This time he sounded sad. Roar! The little girl tugged on Miss Merriweather's dress. If he promises to be quiet, can he come back for story hour tomorrow?" she asked. The lion stopped roaring. He looked at Miss Merriweather. Miss Merriweather looked back. Then she said, "Yes, a nice quiet lion would certainly be allowed to come back for the story hour tomorrow." "Hooray!" said the children. The next day, the lion came back. "You're early," said Miss Merriweather. "Story hour is not until 3 o'clock." The lion did not budge. "Very well," said Miss Merriweather. "You might as well make yourself useful." She sent him off to dust the encyclopedias until it was time for story hour. And what do you think he's dusting the encyclopedias with? With his cute tail? The next day, the lion came early again. This time, Miss Merriweather asked him to lick all the envelopes for the overdue notices. Soon, the lion began doing things without being asked. He dusted the encyclopedias, he licked the envelopes, he let small children stand on his back to reach the books on the highest shelves. He's a pretty helpful lion. That's awesome. Then he curled up in the story corner to wait for the story hour to begin. Aw, what a nice cuddly lion to read your stories with. At first, the people in the library got nervous about the lion. But soon they got used to having him around. In fact, he seemed very well suited for the library. His big feet were quiet on the library floor. He made a comfy backrest for the children at story hour, and he never roared in the library anymore. "Oh, what a helpful lion," the people said. They patted his soft head as they walked by. How did we ever get along without him? Mr. McBee scowled when he heard that. They had always gotten along fine before. No lions were needed. Lions, he thought, could not understand rules. They did not belong in the library. Do you think lions belong in the library? Do you think bees do? How about chickens? One day, after he had dusted all the encyclopedias and licked all of the envelopes and helped all the small children, the lion padded down the hall to Miss Merriweather's office to see what else there was to do. There was still some time left before story hour. "Hello, Lion," said Miss Merriweather. "I know something you can do. You can bring a book back to the stacks for me. Let me just get it down from this shelf." And Miss Merriweather stepped onto a step stool. The book was just out of reach. Miss Merriweather stood on her toes, and she stretched out her fingers, and "Almost there," she said. Then Miss Merriweather stretched a little too far. What do you think's going to happen? Have you ever tried to stand on a step stool and sometimes you fall down, huh? "Ouch," said Miss Merriweather softly. She did not get up. There are her feet right there. "Mr. McBee," she called after a minute. "Mr. McBee." But Mr. McBee was at the front circulation desk. He could not hear her calling. "Lion," said Miss Merriweather, "please go and get Mr. McBee." So the lion ran down the hall. "No running," Miss Merriweather said. He put his big front paws up on the circulation desk and looked at Mr. McBee. "Go away, Lion," said Mr. McBee. "I'm busy." The lion whined. He pointed his nose down the hall towards Mrs. Merriweather's office. McBee ignored him. Finally, the lion did the only thing he could think of to do. He looked Mr. McBee right in the eye. Then he opened his mouth very wide, and he roared the loudest roar he had ever roared in his life. Roar! What do you think he's saying? He's trying to tell Mr. McBee about Miss Merriweather. Come on over. Mr. McBee gasped. "Oh, you are not being quiet," he said to the lion. "You are breaking the rules." Mr. McBee walked down the hall as fast as he could. The lion did not follow him. He had broken the rules, and he knew what that meant. He hung his head and walked towards the doors. Mr. McBee did not notice. "Miss Merriweather," he called as he walked. "Miss Merriweather, the lion broke the rules." The lion broke the rules. He burst into Miss Merriweather's office, but she was not in her chair. "Miss Merriweather," he asked. "Sometimes," said Miss Merriweather from the floor beside her desk, "sometimes there's a good reason to break the rules, even in the library. Now please go call a doctor. I think I've broken my arm." Mr. McBee ran to call the doctor. "No running," Miss Merriweather called after him. The next day, things were back to normal. Well, almost. Miss Merriweather's left arm was in a cast. The doctor had told her not to work too hard. "I'll have my lion to help me," Miss Merriweather thought. But the lion did not come to the library that morning. At 3 o'clock, Miss Merriweather walked over to the story corner. The story lady was just beginning the story for the children. The lion was not there. Why do you think the lion didn't come to story time? People in the library kept looking up from their books and their computer screens, hoping they would see that familiar furry face. But the lion did not come that day. The lion did not come the next day, or the next either, or the day after that. Shoot. One evening, Mr. McBee stopped by Miss Merriweather's office on his way out. "Can I do anything for you before I go, Miss Merriweather?" "No, thank you," said Miss Merriweather. She was looking out the window. Her voice was very quiet, even for the library. Mr. McBee frowned as he walked away. He thought there probably was something he could do for Miss Merriweather after all. What's he going to do? Mr. McBee left the library, but he did not go home. He walked around the neighborhood. He looked under the cars. He looked behind the bushes. He looked in backyards, around trash cans and tree houses. Finally, he circled all the way back around to the library. The lion was sitting outside, looking in through the glass doors. Does he look very happy? He looks pretty sad. "Hello, lion," said Mr. McBee. The lion did not turn around. "I thought you might like to know," said Mr. McBee, "that there's a new rule at the library. No roaring allowed, unless you have a good reason. Say, if you're trying to help a friend who's been hurt, for example." The lion's ears twitched. He turned around, but Mr. McBee was already walking away. The next day, Mr. McBee walked down the hall to Miss Merriweather's office. "What is it, Mr. McBee?" asked Miss Merriweather in her new, sad, quiet voice. "I thought you might like to know," said Mr. McBee, "that there's a lion, in the library. Miss Merriweather jumped up from her chair and she ran down the hall. Mr. McBee smiled. "No running," he called. But Miss Merriweather didn't listen. Sometimes there was a good reason to break the rules, even at the library. And there is the library lion. I hope you liked our story today, and I hope that you come to the library and enjoy the outside time as well as the inside time. So, see you next week. Thank you. I have to see the screen to turn it off. And I can't see.